Welcome to Straight Talk with me, Noel Lee. This is podcast number 5, a show where we talk to content creators on YouTube, as well as people with opinions on other platforms, such as Twitter. My next guest is someone whom I've met on Twitter, and I'm glad that she has accepted my invitation to be on Straight Talk today. She is from Germany, and she has been in China a few times in the past. Without further ado, let me introduce Navina Heyden.
Hi.
How are you?
I'm fine. Thanks for the invitation.
Well, thanks for coming onto the show. I really appreciate it. I've told the audience that you have been to China a few times. Would you like to introduce yourself to the audience?
Yeah, sure. 大家好，我的名字叫 Navina Heyden. I'm a German bachelor student, and I'm very active on social media platforms, especially on Twitter. On Twitter, I like to discuss about German and Chinese culture and politics. And as you said, I have China experience. I also speak the language. And so I'm basically using Twitter to share my experience and maybe also clarify some misunderstandings about China and Germany.
Could you elaborate on your experiences in China? When did you come to China for the first time? Where did you stay? How long did you stay? And what was your impression of China?
My first time traveling to China was in 2016. And at that time, I went to a lot of different cities. I went to Beijing, Shanghai, Qingdao. Plus, I was staying at my partner's family, which is in a small city of the Shandong province. So my first time when I traveled to China, I feel, of course, very overwhelmed with all those very large buildings. What kind of surprised me is that China has so many green fields. Because whenever I look at China from some textbooks or so, it always looks like everything is modernized and there are no trees at all. So this is actually something that surprised me. I think my most notable travel to China was the last one I had in 2020 during the virus outbreak. And this is actually also the travel I'd like to discuss in this Straight Talk.
So yeah, tell me about your experiences while in China during the pandemic.
During the pandemic, I was arriving at China in January 2020. At that time, there wasn't really any outbreak yet, but you still heard about some cases in Wuhan. So I was landing in Peking airport and then immediately got to my partner's family in the Shandong province. And over there, I would be staying for the whole travel. So at first, we would just read the news all the time, see whether something noticeable is happening. Not too long after we arrived, we heard the news about the Wuhan Lockdown. And so after we heard about this lockdown, we had to follow those very strict containment measures. When I was living with my partner's family, we live in this residential complex. First of all, when you live in those residential complexes, whenever you want to leave or enter this complex, you have to inform the authority about your whereabouts. So they can always trace you and track you, and whenever you get in contact with another person, you will be informed immediately. Another measure I noticed is per family, you could only have one person go out to do grocery shopping. And also besides grocery stores and maybe also pharmacies, every other shop was closed. So right. No shopping mall, no gathering, and even travel was limited.
This is only in respect to the places that were locked down, which is Wuhan, right?
Not only Wuhan.
Okay.
I was staying in a small city in the Shandong province, and even we had to follow all those containment measures.
Right. Yeah, because things were different here in Shenzhen. It was just advising you to stay at home. There was no real, one person per household sort of thing. So yeah, it's good to actually understand from your perspective and your experience that this actually happened in Shandong as well. Yeah, carry on, please.
Okay, I'm surprised Shenzhen is different. Another thing I would like to note is that my partner's cousin is a nurse, and she actually told us during the outbreak in Wuhan, some of her colleagues went to the Hubei province to work as a reinforcement to the medical staff. So that's actually something that moved me a lot, because even though you live in a different province and this outbreak is so far away, you still don't hesitate to support them. And I feel like this is something I would like to share here.
I also admire very much the medical staff anywhere, right? Not just in China, who are on the front line taking care of the patients. And I mean, we have all seen the videos of how they would actually dress up one mask, another mask, another thing, and another thing. I mean,
this whole body outfit.
yes, and we are complaining about just one mask, right?
Exactly. Yeah, I have a lot of respect to those medical workers.
It's actually kind of sad to see that apart from China, the rest of the world is not really handling it. We're still seeing cases. Even my own home country of Singapore, again, we are going into some kind of a lockdown. They don't really say it's lockdown. They just give it a fanciful name. But essentially what it is to tell you to stay at home, work from home, only go out for essentials. And that is basically what a lockdown is, right? You are not actually keeping people locked in their house, but you are still allowing to go out for essential things. And I think the reason for this is because unlike China, who actually was strict and decisive in their approach to the pandemic, other countries like myself in Singapore, it's a half baked sort of thing. You are not giving total lockdown, you're not giving total freedom. It's a little bit here and there. It's half this and half that. And then look at where we are, one year and more into when it first started, and we're still going through this back and forth. And Germany as well?
In Germany, we actually didn't flatten the curve yet. In Germany, actually, even though right now our cases are going down, we still have to be under the lockdown, and we cannot loosen it up yet. When I came back in March, Germany did not have any outbreak yet. So nobody was supposed to wear a mask. You can go shopping anywhere. You can meet all your friends and family, all no problem. However, because at that time we already had some cases in the southern part of Germany, I was already expecting that one day we will have an outbreak. And also based on how Germany was viewing the Chinese lockdown, I'm pretty much sure that we will not implement those strict measures. So even when I came back to Germany, I was already started wearing a mask, even though it wasn't mandatorized. Yeah. And at that time, it was actually a little bit embarrassing if nobody is wearing masks and you're the only one wearing one.
So exactly what is the situation now in your part of town? What is the situation? Is the government doing like lockdowns or not lockdowns? Tell me more, please.
We currently still have this more or less compromised lockdown. So shopping malls are still closed. You're not suggested to meet with another household. Yeah, but you're still allowed to do demonstrations and nobody can actually trace you. So that's actually one problem about our lockdown. You cannot really make sure those measures are implemented correctly. My feeling right now is that we are relying on the vaccine very much. So we don't actually plan to contain the virus. We're trying to buy more time until everybody is vaccinated. So we have this hope that once everybody is vaccinated, we can open all the shops again and our economy will no longer suffer. This is currently the situation in Germany.
I'd like to pick your mind on a certain thing that I recently saw on the video. The world going forward, they are trying to implement this vaccine passport. And the reason why I'm bringing this up is because you mentioned about the vaccine. So vaccine equals the chance of having this vaccine passport in order for you to be allowed into certain places or be given access to certain things. So this is going to limit personal freedoms and it's going to promote discrimination, right? Meaning that, if you are not vaccinated, then you will be treated in a certain way. And when you are vaccinated, you are treated in another way. What is your opinion on that?
I found it difficult. I know I heard about some people who claim that this vaccination passport is somehow harming your individual rights, but I'm actually having a little bit mixed feeling of giving vaccinated people some advantages. Because if vaccinated people can get advantages, then if you implement a vaccination passport, you really have to make sure you can check it very well, make sure that there's no fraud in it. And this is basically my worry, that we cannot really check it clearly, and then people who may not be vaccinated will still continue to spreading it because they give false information.
So are you aware of how China actually track contact tracing and all these vaccine certifications?
From what I heard, China has implemented this QR code that you can scan with your phone. And then when you're vaccinated or you're not a danger at all, you can still enter shopping malls or any leisure activities. So that's why actually I heard in China, most people are not so much willing to get vaccinated because they don't consider it's necessary.
I myself, I'm not vaccinated yet because as a foreigner, I need to go for an appointment with the hospital. There's an appointed hospital in my area that I can go to get the vaccine. Unlike how they actually set up tentages in a neighborhood, even in shopping areas that I see, right? So in the railway station that I normally take the train, there is a area set up for free vaccine in the neighborhood that I'm living in. Just downstairs, there is a area set up near the school for free vaccine. But of course, these are all for the local people. And yes, from what I've seen of people who have gotten their vaccines, you actually have, it's like a bit of a computer game whereby you get sort of like a medal or a award, sort of an icon on your phone that proves that you are vaccinated. So that is what China is doing in terms of having like a vaccine passport, so to speak.
Yes.
Yeah.
What kind of vaccine are they giving in those small?
I don't exactly know the exact vaccine name, but it's definitely Chinese vaccines.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I need to go and do my homework on that.
Okay, because the vaccines I know, like AstraZeneca or Pfizer, only 2 vaccinations. So usually you have to make 2 appointments to get those. That's why I'm a little bit curious, because you can just go there and get a vaccination. So it must be only 1 shot.
Yeah, I'm not too sure about the procedures for the local, but I do think that it's 2 shots as well. And I've also heard about a 3-shot vaccine. Have you heard about that?
Oh, this actually I didn't hear about it. I'm actually only familiar with a few vaccines. I know Pfizer, I know AstraZeneca, Johnson & Johnson, Sinovac, and another Russian vaccine. This is actually most of the vaccines I know. And in Germany, we also only have a limited number. And I never heard about a 3-shot vaccination.
Apparently, what I heard from people who have knowledge about this 3-shot vaccine, again, I've got to verify it, but this is what I heard from the local people. So it should be somewhat true, is that instead of 2 shots whereby the strength of the vaccine is 50-50, you have a 3-shot whereby you reduce the strength, and then the body gets it's like a more gradual acceptance to the vaccine. Yeah. Yourself, have you actually gotten the vaccine or planning to?
No, I want to get the vaccination. However, the problem in Germany is we do not have enough vaccination to vaccinate every one of us. So for now, we're actually more focusing on a risk group. When I say risk group, I'm talking about old people, medical staff, teachers, maybe also policemen. Those groups are currently prioritized. And since I'm a student, I can work from home, and I'm still very young, I will likely be one of the last person to get the vaccine. Right. However, I have hope that one day I'll get the vaccine.
Don't mind me asking, again, you can choose not to answer. Are you able to go back to China with the fact that you have your partner being Chinese? Are you able to go back to China?
I will be able to go back to China, but I will have to do a lot of self-quarantine, as I heard. And from what I heard, I'm not so sure whether this is true or not. I have to prepare 2 COVID tests. Both have to be negative. And then I have to do another 2 weeks self-quarantine in a hospital also, and another hotel in a hotel.
Right. So I guess it's not worth the hassle at the moment.
It's a very large hassle. I was also talking with some other Chinese here in my hometown, and they all complain about this very inconvenient way to travel. And they also claim it's pretty expensive to get those tests, because apparently you cannot just use those tests from the pharmacy. You really you probably need a special test. I don't know about this. Otherwise, I cannot explain why it would be so expensive.
Right. I think people just traveling at this point of time is still something that is, unless it's absolutely necessary, it should be avoided. Because again, we have a few cases in China. Just recently in Guangzhou, in Xinjiang, whereby people from the port actually got the virus and, infecting various others. So, small clusters here and there. If things are going on like this, there is just simply no reason for the countries to open up, right?
Yes.
So, this pandemic is not, in my opinion, from what I see, it's not going to be something that is ending in the near future, not even with the vaccine, right?
No, not even with the vaccine. You may still have some mutations. You may still have some mutations of the virus, and I don't know whether the vaccine will still work or whether you need another version of it.
How is this affecting you, per se, for your daily life and future plans?
Right now, for me, it's not really so inconvenient, because I'm still doing my bachelor here in Germany. And all my classes are currently online. Even some of my exams for this semester, at least, are online. But since I plan to go to China soon, either by the end of this year or next year, so this will be an inconvenience for me. But right now for me, it's actually okay like this.
That's good to know. So moving along, we got to know each other on Twitter, and I just want to again touch a little bit on this because I saw one of your YouTube video.
Yes.
Right. One video that you did. And of course, I'll put the link of Navina's video in the description below. You can check it out. So in that video, you talk about Western and Asian cultures. Now, yourself having experienced both, how do you think Western people may misunderstand Asian cultures? And there's this misconception, maybe an opinion from the West that the East and Asian cultures are too restrictive of personal freedoms. Would you like to comment on that?
Well, first of all, the main difference between European countries or Western countries in general and Eastern countries, like those Asian countries, is first of all, in those Western countries, we consider your individual freedom is more important than your collective sense, like this. So we consider your individual rights should by all means be protected, even if that could harm others. This is one problem. And in those Asian countries, what I can see is you pay a lot of attention to the collective good. This is what I could see during the pandemic in China. You always have to wear a mask. You cannot travel too freely. All the leisure activities were shut down. So to a lot of people, actually, this was a serious inconvenience, and not everybody was happy with it. However, the Chinese people, from what I can see, they still accept it, and then they follow it. And they do not follow it because somebody is holding a gun at their hand and telling them do it, otherwise there will be consequences. So I feel like because those Asian countries have this more collective sense, they are much more willing to, let's say, give up some of their convenience to protect the collective good. This is the main difference I have.
Now, do you think that the West can ever one day adopt these values from the East, which they can come to a realization that it is not about this thing called rights or freedom. It's about being responsible socially. Right? Unless you're living in an island by yourself, you can have all the rights that you want, right? But if you are an integration of a society, isn't it part of your responsibility to abide by some rules and not think about just myself only, that it's my right, it's my freedom? How about the other guy? The other person has freedom as well, right?
Yes, I think for European people, it will be difficult to really adapt to those values, and likely they will not adapt to it. However, I feel most people
never.
I don't know, actually. I probably in the near future they will not. But I really do see people who can see that actually being collective is not only bad. In fact, actually, when I was reading some articles about the lockdown in China, there are articles saying that the lockdown is over, COVID is contained, and there are a lot of people who actually admit that China's way of containing the virus is effective, even though they do not agree with, even though they think China is still authoritarian and not a democracy at all. Mm-hmm. So people do not necessarily have to adapt to it, but they do see that there actually are positive things about being collective and about China's system. So this is actually something what I can tell about it.
But I guess, to be fair, the people in the West are very adamant about their rights and freedom. It's not exactly the rule for all, isn't it? Am I right to say that? Am I right to say that there are a good portion of people in the West who actually do not value these freedoms and rights as much as what we see the media portraying it to be?
Well, to me, I think most Germans, they still care about those values, but they basically care about their own well-being. For example, whenever I see an article who is slandering China for bad containment or for doing anything that nobody likes, there are actually people saying that I don't care about China. Please pay attention to us first.
Yeah, I think you hit a good point because, like I said, I also agree that every country should be doing its best to govern itself. It is difficult enough to govern a town, a province, let alone a country. And yet, why should any government of any country be worried about somebody else's country instead of its own.
This is actually what I feel most German people's mentality is. They actually don't care about China. They may still receive all this negative information about it. They probably hear something like, China's authoritarian, China's very evil. But to most common people, actually, this does not do anything. For example, when I talk with my colleagues from university, whenever they talk about China, they just say, well, I read some news about China. Yeah, this is it. So I feel like most Germans actually don't care about China at all. They just maybe passively receive those negative images, but they basically care about their own well-being. They don't pay attention. They don't really want our leadership to attack China with our values.
Right. I think this is it just gives me the impression that Germany is actually neutral.
Germany is, from what I can see, is more neutral. Now, of course, there are people claiming that China is evil and we have to fight against it.
All right, just carry on. You were saying something before my camera got blacked out.
Well, I feel like the public is more the neutral one. Most Germans just care about their own welfare first. And then if their welfare is guaranteed, they would probably worry about something like China, which is so far away. But basically, German public wants their welfare to be guaranteed.
So, Navina, if I can ask you for your personal prediction on when Germany can finally be back to normal, what do you have to say?
This is something I actually can't really tell for certain. I've been discussing this with my friends and family, and they all consider probably within the next few years it will not be back to normal. Likely when we get the vaccination, we will open some shops again, but who knows what will happen afterwards. Maybe there will be a mutation and we need another lockdown, another vaccine. So this is something I cannot answer really with confidence.
Right, fair enough. In Singapore, the government has actually spoken about how the pandemic would become an endemic, meaning that it's going to be part and parcel of your daily life. So we really have to just wait and see. With just hope that China continues to be strict with the COVID measures, because we have seen what has happened all over the world, and any lapse of concentration, the same thing can happen to China.
Yes.
All right. So on a lighter note, on Twitter, you mentioned about bread, whether what is considered bread and what is not considered bread. For me personally, let me just get this up. I like the baguette, but it's French, isn't it?
Yes, it's French. But even this is something I would still consider bread.
So a baguette would be bread, right?
Yes. Bread is basically a yeast dough, and when you eat it, it's more like a whole meal.
I picked up this picture from online, and maybe you can tell me a little bit about what you see here.
This to me is bread. All of it.
This is actually German bread, isn't it?
This is German bread, yes. This is something I see a lot of bakeries here around.
And can you just roughly explain why is there a need for so many different kinds of versions of bread in Germany?
We're proud of it, and we like to eat those very different sort of bread.
Right. I was in Germany when I was young. I visited Stuttgart and Frankfurt. But of course, those were distant memories. I don't really recall what happened very young. But I definitely remember my more recent travels to Germany, i.e. Nuremberg. I actually stayed in Airbnb in Nuremberg. So I stayed in somebody's home. Pretty good. Yeah, pretty good. And it was in Fürth in Nuremberg. And my problem was finding breakfast. What do Germans normally have for breakfast?
We have some small sort of bread called Brötchen, and you will usually either buy them from a local bakery or you make them yourself in the oven. And when you have this small bread in front of you, you just cut it into half, and then you can put either some jam, cheese, or some sausages on it. And that's basically how we eat it. You may still have some boiled eggs or maybe also some scrambled eggs. This is basically what I eat all my life long. I would always eat bread for breakfast. Because
previously when I was in Nuremberg, I stayed in a hotel, and that hotel offered international breakfast. So I got my bacon, my toast and everything, my coffee. But when I stayed in the Airbnb, surroundings was a basic German small town, and
Yeah.
I had trouble finding breakfast. All I
There
could
was no bread?
find was bread. And so that was one of my experiences.
Well, every German eats bread for breakfast, almost every German. So of course you will basically have the bread. In Germany, it's actually not very common to eat something like bacon and eggs for breakfast. It's so for almost every family I've ever been to will eat bread for breakfast.
And you will make your own bread. Is that common in Germany? Every
Well,
household makes their own bread?
You don't actually make your own bread, but you can buy something called Sonntagsbrötchen, which is a bread dough in one of those small boxes. And then you just have to put this dough into your oven and bake it. There are a lot of people who also make the bread themselves. It should not be too difficult.
Another food that I love is the goulash soup.
Yes, I also like to eat it a lot.
So I actually went to the supermarket, the grocery shop, and I bought like 6 cans, and I brought it back home from Nuremberg the last time round.
Are you buying this canned food?
Yeah, canned food. But apparently it's not as good. It's not as good as the fresh one. Yeah.
I've actually never tried canned goulash.
Yeah, the canned goulash, the beef is very hardened. It's not so good.
Yeah. Well, fresh made goulash will be a little bit more softer, but still has some extent of hardness.
Do you make goulash yourself?
I never made it myself, but I can ask my parents how to make it. My mother actually can make very good goulash.
Is there anything else that you want to tell the audience before we wrap up?
Have you tried Mettbrötchen one year in Germany?
I'm sorry, what?
Mettbrötchen.
No, what is that?
It's bread with raw pork on it.
Raw pork?
Yes, raw
Wow.
minced pork. And some onions on top of it. This is actually quite common to see in Germany.
Oh, wow. Am I hearing this right? Raw pork.
Exactly.
Wow. How is that possible? Like smoked, right?
No, raw.
Raw. Wow.
Yes.
That is a first. I got to Google it. Please send me a link
I can send you a link,
of the name, and I will check it out. Because from what I understand, you can't eat raw pork.
Yes, but it has to be fresh, of course. And I think when you really want to buy it, you have to buy it directly from the butcher, and you cannot leave it for more than one day, as I heard.
Okay. Well, for all you guys listening, this is something new. I will learn from Navina what it is, and we can find out exactly what it is the next time we can try it in Germany.
Well, I don't eat it, actually. I don't like it at all.
Oh, okay.
It tastes.
They should recommend something that you like, maybe.
Something I like.
Yeah.
I like to eat Berliner.
What is that?
Berliner is a sweet yeast dough which is fried and then covered with either some sprinkles or some glaze on it. We usually like to eat it for New Year.
Okay. Wow.
This is probably something, well, probably for Chinese you would consider this as bread. Because it's very, very soft, very fluffy, and it is sweet.
So speaking of food now, what, may I ask, would be your favorite Chinese food in China?
Oh, I have a lot of food I really love to eat, but if I would have to think about one right now, it would be Yanrouchuar.
Oh, that is a Xinjiang specialty.
Yes, I like to eat it a lot.
Wow.
Every time I go to China, I have to eat it at least once.
Were you in Xinjiang before?
Unfortunately, no, but I still plan to go there one day.
All right. So when you had the Yanrouchuan, were they actually from Xinjiang sellers?
Whenever I buy the Yanrouchuan, it's usually from one of those street shops. So I'm not really certain whether the owner is from Xinjiang or where the lamb or beef is coming from.
I see.
But next time I can ask them if I eat it again.
Yeah, so in China, for the audience who don't know, Yanrouchuan is a very specifically Xinjiang cuisine. And even in Shenzhen and the places I've been to in Guangdong, the people selling the Yanrouchuan are actual people from Xinjiang. The ones that are not the actual Xinjiang sellers, usually the Yanrouchuan doesn't taste half as good. That's my experience.
That could be.
Right, Navina, again, thank you so much for your time to be on the show. I really appreciate it.
Thank you for the opportunity.
And we hope that the pandemic really gets, how should I say this, gets controlled, and everybody can once again travel. And, China again welcomes you. I'm sure you want to get back to China with your partner to visit family. And yeah, if our paths meet along the way, I will bring you to some Yang Rou Chuan.
Great. Looking forward to it.
All right. So on that note, this has been Straight Talk with me, Noel Lee. Until the next time, take care, everybody, and I'll see you guys in the next session. Goodbye.
Bye-bye.